Hey everybody, welcome to another Rapid Fire review. This time for Owlcat Games' Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. Now I'm going to do things a bit differently here. We've got a bit more to cover, we've got tangents to go on, anecdotes to go over, and wild opinions that probably shouldn't be taken too seriously. Wrath of the Righteous is Owlcat's second game. Their first, Pathfinder Kingmaker, came out, if I'm being generous, a little rough. For me, it crashed during the character creation, and again once the game first started. One of my first quests was bugged, and I needed to completely start over, so I just quit, and never went back. So, needless to say, when this one was announced, I was also a bit worried about its release. Now, I don't normally worry, but this is exactly my kind of game. And my bias for the good ones is pretty high. And my bias against the bad ones borders on the extreme. A little personal backstory. I absolutely love pen and paper RPGs. I've been absolutely spoiled my entire life with friends who love Dungeons & Dragons. So for over 20 years, we've played 2nd edition, lots and lots of 3.5, of course. Pathfinder, which of course is just 3.5 with benefits. There was an awful 4th edition campaign, and now several 5th edition campaigns. But since no one has been able to get together for the last, year and a half, the minis sit on the shelf, collecting dust, and the dice remain unrolled, sitting in their bags and boxes. I really miss it. On top of that, this game actually looks very reminiscent of the greats. Baldur's Gate, Divinity, Neverwinter Nights, Icewind Dale, and Planescape Torment. So I'm expecting a rich fantasy world, eternally memorable characters, twists and turns in the story, and decisions that matter. And, of course, years of replayability. Alright, on to the actual game. The character creator here is incredibly robust. This is one of the benefits of the Pathfinder system over Dungeons & Dragons, is the additional customization it allows you. You could, and I did, spend over an hour tinkering and toying with the possible characters. There's some pre-mades if this intimidates you, plus you have the ability to have the game choose how you level up and which abilities to pick. But it's absolutely worth spending the extra time and doing some research on your character. You're about to spend at least 70 hours with them. Take the extra time here, and it'll pay off later. If you do happen to screw up, there are opportunities to retrain characters and create custom companions, which I also highly recommend. Having tailor-made companions to fit your playstyle is a real help in this game. This character creator really hooked me. The character creation, choosing alignments, abilities, weird role-playing rules I'm going to set for myself, pun-filled names, catchphrases, and thinking how this specific character would make decisions in these fantasy games is almost half the fun for me. The game for Wrath of the Righteous is broken up into 2 sections. The individual zones and areas that you explore and get quests in, and then the Crusade mechanic done on the world map. The individual zones for the games all function well and get full marks. There's varied landscapes and monsters, hidden treasures, secrets to find, a massive amount of skill checks, puzzles, and bosses. The cities are filled with NPCs that offer quests, sell goods, or just provide insight on the rapidly developing world. There are dozens of quests to do in each act. Some of no real consequence, maybe just some experience or magic items. Some will actually determine if main characters die. Combat for the game is exactly what I want from a pen and paper inspired RPG. If you use the turn-based mode. Now, I experienced whatever the hell non-turn-based was, and I immediately turned that crap off. Now, you play your game how you want, but for me, combat is done in initiative order, 6 seconds at a time, so turn-based is the only way to go. The game's combat encounters can be very punishing, especially on the higher difficulties. I would say that you should size down a difficulty level for Wrath of the Righteous, meaning if you normally play on standard difficulty, casual may be best to start on, though I didn't have too much trouble on the daring difficulty. But you can always raise the difficulty on the fly if you're looking for more of a challenge, or lower it if Playful Darkness has obliterated you too many times. Planning out your fights, setting up your buffs beforehand, summoning monsters, positioning, potion use, they're all vital to successful fights here. It's very often frustrating to try to figure out the trick to some of the combat situations, but in a satisfying kind of way. I thoroughly enjoyed this aspect of the game, which does make up the bulk of the time spent. I was constantly looking for gear upgrades, experience opportunities, and I did almost every quest that was offered, but more on that later. The world map and crusade portion of the game I was far less enamored with. You take command of the ongoing crusade, and you must build up your settlements, move your troops to intercept armies of demons, and take part in grid-based combat with troops and magic. It all sounds well and good on paper, and you'd think that for me, with thousands of hours of Heroes of Might and Magic play under my belt, that I would enjoy it. But the execution was seriously off. Everything here felt clunky, stiff, tacked on last minute. Movement on the map is borderline awful. It is slow, and it's often interrupted for absolutely no damn reason when your armies get next to each other, and you have to replot the entire course of your movement. And it's a pain because moving on the map is already horrid. Now, they did attempt to be kind, and they allowed for auto-crusade and auto-combat. But the AI here is so poor that your side will lose entire fights that should be trivial for you. So I was ultimately forced to play anyways. This section of the game is a good bit longer than I would have liked, and it's necessary for your armies to remove the roadblocks so you can get back to the good part of the game. So you really can't skip it. Overall, the writing for the game is solid. Per the guidelines left by Gygax himself or something, you follow the standard pen and paper plot. You start as a level 1 nobody, then after a week or two of good old adventuring, you are powerful enough to murder gods and determine the fate of the world. Yes, it's absolutely tropey, and it's been done 100 times before, but it works. Along the way, we'd get some interesting characters and companions, tons of twists and turns and decisions that will mean the difference between life and death for main characters. You have all sorts of options to choose your path, ultimately deciding what hero or villain you'll choose to be. While your decisions made in this game are impactful to the cast of characters you'll meet, fight, and romance, there isn't drastic change in the game between good and evil playthroughs. You will certainly feel villainous, refusing to help the needy, stealing from peasants, murdering pretty much everyone, or allying yourself with certain baddies. But the major story beats remain constant. Everything here, writing-wise, was pretty good, except the Blackwater quest and zone, which is unforgivably horrid. If you want to stumble into an immersion-breaking porta-potty fire, go ahead and do this quest, and watch as all of the world-building done before this point is thrown out for no reason. Now, maybe you're the kind of person that likes this nonsense. Hey, there are all sorts of people who, despite the endless possibilities for weapons and magic in fantasy RPGs, have no imagination and want to use a damn gun in their game. Personally, I'd rather have a whole party of horny bard, murder hobo loot goblins than someone who wants a gun in my campaigns. But if you aren't a curmudgeon like I am, and you don't mind wild departures from established world building, maybe you'll like it. Who knows? I was happy to find that this game was far more stable than Kingmaker. In over 80 hours, I only hard crashed one time. Now, that being said, there are no shortages of bugs and glitches. I had 2 quests that, despite hours, and I do mean hours, of searching everywhere in the damn game, I couldn't figure out how to finish. Turns out they were just bugged. Missing NPCs or a quest line that was supposed to come up that didn't. These were known issues, posted all over the internet, that were to be fixed later. Now, fortunately, they've been fixed now, but they weren't for my playthrough. It was infuriating. The game also has issues with camera angles in turn-based mode, near walls, and especially on stairs. I had an over an hour-long section of the camera being violently jerked to and fro for no reason at all, which made the massive battles an absolute nightmare. Targeting was near impossible, and no amount of tweaking fixed any of it. To top it all off, upon reaching the top of that section, I was ambushed by a whole slew of demon bad guys, including 4 Brimmeracks, who beat my initiative roll, quad fireballed my entire party, and forced me to replay the entire section again. Make sure you save often. I had several bugged encounters during my playthrough where only a few party members could make it over the invisible walls or barriers to a fight. Once had a giant demon lord that was the boss for the section that only 2 of my 6 party members could make it in. No matter how often I loaded or changed formations or tried to cheese the system, I got 2 party members in the arena, with the others just forced to sit on the other side of an invisible wall. No magic, no arrows. I also played through a large portion of the Crusade without knowing that the army power buttons actually worked. They, throughout the entire game, gave me error messages. Then I tried to use them, only to find out at the end of the game that if I just clicked and hit the buttons about a dozen or so times, the effect would eventually go off. Even with the bugs that I experienced, I never felt like the game was unfinished. It was unpolished for sure, but nothing to the extent of some of the other big releases this year. Owlcat has already patched the game twice now, and if they follow the same pattern as they did with Kingmaker, I imagine in a week or 2 they'll get just about everything fixed. So I really like this game. 80 hours in, and I'm already thinking about a different playthrough with opposite alignments and paths, deciding who gets to live and die, perhaps a fully customized party, and of course, I've got to do the secret ending, which I couldn't do the first time, since the very first decisions that you make in the game determines whether you can or not, and I didn't want spoilers. The $50 ask for over an 80-hour experience is well worth it. And if you play it twice or more like I'm going to, it's even better. But if you're still worried about the commitment, perhaps try out Kingmaker. It's only $20 right now. OJ's been playing it a lot, and he really likes it. And if a game is stable for that guy, it'll work for anybody.
Now I woke up in bed.
Iomade, you woke up. Healing your easy.
Did we win?
Sadly, no.
Shit!
Alright, so if I come back to reality and I try to check my own bias and take into consideration the buggy state I played it in and the Crusade and small handful of things I didn't quite care for, I'm going to have to give Pathfinder an 8 out of 10, which for the Angry Joe Show is the great game designation. This is a great game, and this is a game that I'm going to recommend to everybody I know that likes RPGs. Thanks so much for sticking with me to the end here. I cannot wait to read all of the comments from people who think the guns belong in Dungeons & Dragons. I'll see you in the comment section and on the next Angry Joe Show.
You're one of the best warriors left in the city.
You're not even a warrior. You're a bad magician.
They miss with my stick.
No, I can't command you.
She was invisible. Chris Angel with a hand.
Even before
Mind freak.
Yeah.
I gotta psych him out. Hey, I'm touching my eyeball.
Yeah, he does the thing. He's like, look, I'm floating on the ground. He lifts his shoe up a little bit.